President Trump urging Tehran to negotiate a nuclear deal, quote, before there is nothing left. This after Israel strikes on Iran's missile and nuclear sites. Let's bring in Michael Oren. He's a former Israeli ambassador to the United States. He wrote in the Free Press yesterday, and here you are with us today. And overnight, this action happened. As I understand it, been planned for a long time. And as you said, Iran has long passed the red line that was drawn by Netanyahu before the United Nations in terms of enrichment. And they felt that this was the time they had to go in. How close were they, the Iranians, and maybe they still are, but to having a nuclear weapon and that enrichment that they needed?
Well, good to be with you, Dana and Bill. Iran was on the verge of becoming a nucler power, and this is a regime that swears weekly, if not daily, to destroy our state, the Jewish state, has empowered and equipped proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, with tens of thousands of rockets to do just that, destroy us. And so Israel saw Iran's ability to make a nuclear weapon within a matter of days as an existential threat. And at the end of the day, for Israeli leaders, it was a no-brainer. There was really no choice but to go ahead and do this, and do it in a way that would be a knockout punch. You know, I'm a certain generation that remembers the end of Godfather 1, where, you know, the heads of the 5 families are knocked off. Well, Israel last night, eliminated the military leadership of Iran, including nuclear scientists who had the know-how to make these bombs. In addition to eliminating Iran's nuclear facilities, certainly in Natanz, one of them, it's a major enrichment facility, perhaps with other facilities as well. And I think most significantly, Iran's ability to pummel Israel with ballistic missiles. It has about 2,000 missiles that pack warheads of about 2,000 tons of TNT. It can take down not just a building, but a neighborhood. And we were ordered into our safe rooms, our bomb shelters, last night around 2 o'clock in the morning. But a couple hours ago, the Army said, get out of your safe rooms. And you can look out my window. I'm near the sea here, and everyone's on the beach. And I think that's a very, very significant development.
Well, Michael, on that note, there are reports about air raid sirens in northern Israel. That would seem to indicate, if that's the case, that area would come under attack from possibly rockets or missiles fired from southern Lebanon on behalf of Hezbollah. Well, we have not confirmed that. We're just reading the alerts we're getting here. Have you heard anything from that part of the country?
We have not, and there's been no sirens in Tel Aviv, and certainly Tel Aviv would be the primary target of any Iranian retaliation if Iran could retaliate. You mentioned earlier in your broadcast that they launched 100 drone rockets or aircraft at us. They were taken down before they actually exited Iranian territory. That is in contrast to the 2 major missile attacks that Iran launched against us in 2024, which they fired 700 huge ballistic missiles at us. It's a huge downgrading, immense downgrading. So we don't know. All the prognostications about the Israeli action precipitating a regional war at this point seem grossly overblown.
Michael Oren, thank you so much.
Yes,
we'll continue
to
draw upon your expertise as this develops.
Dan Hoffman joins us now, Fox News contributor, former CIA station chief. Dan, good morning to you. Let me ask you a question that may be a bit of a fantasy. What if this is all there is on behalf of Iran in response? Meaning the leadership is so decapitated, their ability so injured at the moment, that there is not much of a response out of Iran. Is that even a possibility?
Well, we're still in early days, Bill, and that is a key question that Prime Minister Netanyahu will be asking his intelligence services, and frankly, President Trump will be doing the same thing to the U.S. intelligence community. What means does Iran have to retaliate? Look, they've got the proxy terrorists we talked about in the region, but they've also got sleeper agents located in Europe and potentially here in the United States. They also hosted the leader of al-Qaeda, Saif al-Adil, who has been making his way between Iran and Afghanistan. Iran's links with al-Qaeda are long-standing, and so we have to be prepared for anything. And I can tell you that the U.S. intelligence community at this point is on high alert, mounting a full-court press, collecting the intelligence that will keep us safe.
Yeah, I'll ask a question here that I guess was on my mind. I'm good at these. I don't think it's a dumb question, but you might not know the answer to it. You know, the Israelis were so successful at targeting the top commanders, right? We can put them up on the screen for people here. I think it's called for number 4. You had major military leaders that were killed. The leader of the country survived. What is the thinking on that in terms of the Ayatollah today? Who is he surrounded with? The number 2s, But I guess if you're feeling like you're number 2 right now, you're still not very safe.
Yeah, I think Israel's goal was to decapitate Iran's military. They also killed the national security official who was leading the nuclear negotiations with the United States, Ali Shamkhani. The goal here for Israel was to destroy Iran's means of retaliation, but also to create the opportunity for others to be potentially promoted into their place. I think, as President Trump noted, maybe they will be less intransigent, less defiant, less provocative. But at this point, Israel tried everything they could, so did the United States, to bring a diplomatic resolution and prevent the crisis that is unfolding in the Middle East. And I would emphasize at this point as well, look, this is the fog of war, and where we go from here is awfully hard to predict. And for sure, U.S., Israeli, and our European allies, all of our intelligence services and militaries on high alert to detect threats way out left of boom before things get bad, and then preempt them if needed. Iran knows that if they strike U.S. military bases, even with their proxies, that they will face the wrath of our military.
Yeah, Mike Pompeo mentioned this area called Fordo. It's spelled F-O-R-D-O-W. It's southwest of Tehran. That is in a mountainside, and a Richmond side dug in about a half-mile deep. Based on our understanding, the Israeli military, they don't have bunker buster bombs. And you wonder, Netanyahu, he has to run the table here, meaning he has to eliminate entirely the nuclear threat in Iran, or this will not be considered a success. And they'll be back at this in a year or two, or at some point beyond that. What's your view on that, Dan?
No, that's right. And Israel, let's remember, historically, Israel eliminated Iraq's nuclear capability in 1981 and Syria's in 2007. You're right about Fordo. Look, Natanz you can get to through the air. Fordo, Israel doesn't have the military capability, but they do have their operatives on the ground. And so the question is whether they're getting at Fordo in some other way. And we'll have to wait in the coming days, perhaps, to gain some updates on the extent to which Israel was able to target Fordo. But that's a key part of Iran's nuclear uranium enrichment, and it's one that Israel would definitely consider a high priority to strike.
I wonder, from an intelligence perspective, which is your expertise, and you think about the Israelis thinking about this operation, maybe going back to 2008, as the Iranians were trying to get this nuclear weapon, on a scale and a scope that is quite historic. What do you think about their capabilities? It does seem quite incredible.
Yeah, I always felt, in all the times that I've worked with the Israelis, back when I served as the director of the CIA's Near East division, that Israel just simply wouldn't exist if they didn't have this extraordinary intelligence capability, not only to detect threats, but to conduct these sorts of offensive operations. And we've seen the results of many of them, including that pager operation against Hezbollah operatives in Lebanon, and the ability that Israel has had with pinpoint precision to strike at leaders of Iran's proxy terrorists, including inside Iran. Remember, they took out Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. So they have this ability to fuse their military operations with intelligence collection in extraordinary ways in the region and beyond. And I think that's exactly what they're doing right now. And a lot of it we're not going to see, except for the results when there are dead Iranian senior military officials or Iranian nuclear facilities that have been blown up.
Much more to come today. We'll watch it by the hour. Dan Hoffman, thank you. Don't go far. We really appreciate your analysis.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.